This happened to me last winter, and to this day, I don't have an explanation for what really went down. I was home alone for the weekend and everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Hi, my name is Dennis. I was 19 at the time, and my parents had gone out of town for the weekend to celebrate their anniversary. They left me in charge of the house, and I didn't mind. I liked having the house to myself. No rules, no nagging, just peace and quiet. It was a Friday night, and I just finished watching a movie on Netflix in the living room. The house was eerily quiet, and the only light came from the faint glow of the TV. It was one of those cold winter nights where everything feels just a little too still. At around midnight, I decided to head upstairs to my room. As I walked past the front door, something made me pause. I don't know why, but I felt the urge to check the locks. Everything was secure, but the feeling of unease lingered. I went up to my room and started scrolling through my phone, trying to shake off the weird feeling. About 30 minutes later, I heard a noise. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct, a soft scraping sound coming from downstairs. I froze, trying to convince myself it was just the wind or the house settling. But then it happened again. This time, it sounded like someone gently dragging something across the floor. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. The noise had stopped, but my heart was pounding. I debated calling my parents or even the police, but I didn't want to overreact. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed and slowly made my way downstairs. When I reached the living room, everything seemed normal, until I looked toward the window. For a split second, I thought I saw someone standing outside, but when I turned on the light, there was nothing there. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe the movie I had watched earlier was messing with my head. I locked the windows, double-checked the doors, and went back upstairs. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Every creak and groan of the house made me jump. Then, just as I was starting to relax, I heard it again, but this time it was coming from right outside my bedroom door. I froze, my hand gripping the bat so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The sound continued, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging their nails across the wood. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. The scraping stopped, but then I heard something else, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone was speaking just on the other side of the door. I wanted to open the door to confront whoever or whatever was out there, but my instincts told me to stay put. Instead, I shoved a chair under the doorknob and backed away, keeping my eyes on the door. For the next hour, I sat in my room, clutching the bat, too scared to move. The whispers had stopped, but I couldn't bring myself to open the door. Then, just as I was starting to think it was all in my head, I heard the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps moving down the hallway. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the footsteps grew louder and closer. They stopped right outside my door, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then, the doorknob started to turn. I yelled, "I'm calling the police!" But the doorknob kept twisting, harder and harder, as if someone was trying to force their way in. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I waited, holding my breath, but there was nothing. No sound, no movement. When I finally worked up the courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. But on the floor, right outside my door, was a note. It read, "Next time, I won't stop." I never figured out who it was or how they got in. I showed the note to the police, but there were no fingerprints, no evidence, nothing. My parents installed a security system after that, but I still don't feel safe in that house. I moved out a few months later, and I've never spent another night there alone.
This happened to me and my two friends, Brian and Sam, last Christmas Eve. It was supposed to be a fun weekend at a cozy rental cottage in the mountains, a little getaway to celebrate the holidays. But we left that place terrified, and I doubt I'll ever go back. It was a last-minute decision. My friend Sam found the place online, a small rustic cottage in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by snow-covered pine trees. It looked perfect in the photos. Cozy, festive, and completely isolated. Exactly what we were looking for. The drive took hours, winding up snowy mountain roads. By the time we arrived, it was already dark. The cottage was small, just one floor with 2 bedrooms and a fireplace. The owner had left it decorated for Christmas. There was a tree in the corner, stockings over the mantel, and a string of lights hanging along the roof outside. But something felt off there. I can't explain it, but the place felt too still. Not peaceful, just unnervingly quiet. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched somehow. We brushed it off, unloaded our bags, and started a fire. Sam cooked some food, Brian cracked open a bottle of wine, and for a while it felt normal. It started snowing around 10 p.m. We sat by the fire, playing cards and having the time of our lives, when Brian noticed something strange. "Hey, were there footprints outside earlier?" he asked. We all turned to look. Through the frost-covered window, we could see a set of footprints in the snow. They started near the edge of the forest and led right up to the front door. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. We hadn't heard anyone pull up, and we were miles from the nearest town. Sam laughed nervously. "Probably the owner, checking if we got here okay." "Why wouldn't they knock then?" Brian asked. None of us had an answer. Sam grabbed a flashlight and opened the door to check, but the footprints stopped abruptly about 5 feet from the door. No sign of anyone walking away. We locked the door and tried to forget about it. Around midnight, we decided to call it a night. The storm had picked up, and the wind howled outside, rattling the windows. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone. That's when I heard it. A faint knock at the door. I froze, listening. It came again, louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. I grabbed my phone and texted Sam and Brian. "Did you guys hear that?" Sam replied almost immediately. "Yeah, don't open the door." The knocking continued, steady and deliberate. It sounded too heavy to be from the wind, and something about it felt wrong. Then I heard Brian shout from his room, "Who's out there?" I ran out of my room to find Brian standing by the door, holding a fire poker. Sam was behind him. They were both sweating profusely. "Don't open it," Sam hissed. Brian shook his head. "What if someone's hurt?" Before any of us could stop him, he pulled the curtain aside to look out the window next to the door. His face went pale. "What?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just backed away from the door, muttering, "That's not possible." I looked for myself. Standing on the porch was a man in a tattered Santa suit. His face was partially obscured by the hood, but we could see his beard was filthy, and his hands were bare and red from the cold. But it wasn't just his appearance that terrified me. It was his eyes. They were wide, unblinking, and fixed directly on the window, as if he knew I was there. We quickly locked the door and turned off all the lights, hoping he'd go away. For a while, there was silence. Then we heard footsteps circling the cottage, crunching in the snow. The man didn't knock again, but every few minutes, we'd hear him brushing against the walls, as if he were feeling his way around the house. And that's when we heard a singing somewhere. It was soft at first, almost a whisper. "Silent night, holy night." The voice was hoarse and off-key, and it sent chills down my spine. We sat in the dark, clutching whatever makeshift weapons we could find, until the singing stopped. At dawn, we finally worked up the courage to look outside. The man was gone, but the snow around the cottage was covered in footprints, dozens of them, circling the house over and over. We didn't stick around to find out what his intention was with us or who he was. We packed up and left within the hour. We told the owner about it, but they said no one else was up there. There was no car, no tracks leading away from the house. Nothing. To this day, I don't know who or what that man was, but I'll never forget the way he looked at me through that window. and I'll never spend another Christmas in the middle of nowhere again. Could this actually be the owner himself? As we said, that place is too far from the city. If there's anyone that would know if the Airbnb was occupied, it must be the owner of the cottage. Comment down below, what do you think?